Hello and what is up YouTube? My name is G3Iron and today we're going to feature a little discussion that we had yesterday while live streaming some PoE Ruthless action. And the nature of this discussion comes up as one of our chat users, Jeff, asked the question, hey, why should I play Ruthless rather than simply continue playing normal Path of Exile where I'm having a great time in the league? And I think all of this discussion revolves around whether or not you think a work of art is completed when there are enough things added to it or when there's enough things taken away. As the French author Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, I'm sure that I'm butchering that name, my apologies, once said, it seems that perfection is attained not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing more to remove. So we'll get into some of the reasons for why I'm playing Path of Exile Ruthless this league, but I think this quote really encapsulates a lot of the perspective of what there is to enjoy about PoE Ruthless. So many players talk about what isn't in Path of Exile Ruthless, and I think that actually adds and contributes to what makes Ruthless mode such a fun experience. Anyway, without further ado, here is our discussion from yesterday. I hope you enjoy it, and if you've got thoughts or comments, feel free to leave them down below. So we've got here helping us today, Dr. Ruth. Here we go. Here's Dr. Ruth. Dr. Ruth is going to be giving us a couple of prescriptions for playing Ruthless. Now, these are not going to be tips on how to play Ruthless and how to progress your character in Ruthless. By the way, as a disclaimer, just so that way you know, I've been playing a lot of Ruthless. For me, your balding, bearded, beautiful friend over here, G3Iron, I've got 6 characters right now active in Ruthless Hardcore Solo Self-Found. Next to my slightly balding, bearded face, you can see I've got 5 deaths on my characters. I've got 1 mule death, and I've gotten 2 characters up to Act 10, Katava, and Hardcore Solo Self-Found Ruthless. So needless to say, I've been playing the heck out of Ruthless. So I really enjoy Ruthless. There's some changes to it, but we'll go over those changes another time in another video discussion. But for today, I'm just going to try and argue and articulate why it is that you might enjoy Ruthless. So here's Dr. Ruth's advice. All right. So number 1, here's the first reason why you should play Ruthless. All right. This is the top reason. There's no other reason that is going to beat this reason as a top reason. If for any reason, if for any reason, it can be due to player burnout, it can be due to dissatisfaction with the game state, it can be due to your friends aren't playing with you the way how they used to, it can be due to you simply wanting to play Path of Exile in a different way, it can be due to wanting to challenge yourself in a new environment. The number 1 reason why you should play Ruthless is because you're playing normal Path of Exile, but you think there's an opportunity for you to be enjoying your Path of Exile experience more. Okay, that's the number reason. The number 1 reason is you think that you might have more fun playing Ruthless than regular mode. If you don't think you're going to have more fun playing Ruthless than playing regular mode, there's no other reason that's going to justify for you to play Ruthless, all right? If Ruthless ends up being less fun for you than normal Path of Exile, you shouldn't play it, okay? That's like very simple, very easy, but it's a straightforward thing. But if Path of Exile Ruthless is not fun for you, you shouldn't play it. You shouldn't. Because all you're going to do is you're going to play it, you're going to have a miserable time, and you're going to go out and you're going to tell other people that you had a miserable time. And that's okay. It's okay for you to tell other people that you had a miserable time. But ultimately, if you already know that you're having fun playing one way of Path of Exile, and you don't think another way of playing it is going to be more fun, why would you do that? It's like saying, well, I'm used to eating my dinner with a knife and a fork, but today, just for fun, I think I'm going to use my shoe. Like, there's a reason why we don't use shoes to eat our meals, right? And I realize I've now offended a huge portion of the Path of Exile gaming community who likes to eat their meals using their shoes as utensils. My apologies. All of my views that are expressed here today are wholly 100%, G3Iron only, and they're in no way, shape, or form affiliated with, anybody else. I understand that I own my views, and I'm responsible for offending all of you who like to eat your meals with shoes, okay? But in general, we do things because they're more efficient or because they're more fun. Ruthless is not more efficient, okay? Which means it had better be more fun. More efficient for Path of Exile is going to be getting to endgame, progressing through the game, making your character as min-maxed as possible. In general, you're going to have less options in Path of Exile. And so that's going to be our number 2 reason. The first reason is number 1. But the second reason actually has to do with scarcity. Scarcity. Reason number 2 is that in Ruthless mode, you will have less options. Things are more scarce. And that's actually something that is enjoyable for a lot of players. If you enjoy the challenge of not having stuff, if you enjoy the challenge of constantly having to go back to the drawing board and rethink, all right, I've got this active skill gem, I've got this active skill gem, and I've got this support gem, and I've got these limited attributes. What's worth it for me to play? If the scarcity of Path of Exile produces for you, I'm going to draw a little arrow here. If scarcity produces for you creativity in your engagement of different builds, of different ideas, of different concepts, that's going to make something like Ruthless more fun for you as you're playing Path of Exile. If you don't enjoy scarcity, if you only want oodles of loot and oodles of support gems and oodles of auras and oodles of items and oodles of options for your playstyle, oodles of uniques for your playstyle, oodles of div cards to farm, Ruthless is not for you. If, however, you're sadistic or masochistic, sadistic would be that I'm happy for other players to be getting the scarcity. Masochism is I'm happy to be suffering from the scarcity. So if you're slightly masochistic like me, and you see item scarcity, aura scarcity, unique item scarcity, character scarcity, build limitations as actually being a framework and a structure for you to build around and be creative, Ruthless is for you. So number 1 reason is fun. Number 2 reason is that scarcity can breed creativity. And then I'm going to come down here and give you one more reason here as we wrap up today's brief discussion, giving you a couple of reasons why you might enjoy playing Ruthless. Okay, here's reason number 3. Oh my goodness, my 3s are going to need some work. The third reason, okay, that I've enjoyed and had fun playing Ruthless is learning. Okay? If you are already learning a ton about Path of Exile, as you are overplaying the normal mode of Path of Exile, if you are learning about endgame mechanics, if you're learning about bosses, if you're learning about optimal mapping strategies, if you are learning about how to min-max your character, if you're learning new tricks about how to utilize different combinations and different ascendancies and different uniques, that's going to be something that you're going to enjoy in general more in regular Path of Exile. If you want to learn some things that you never realized could interact and make the game feel much better than what it was feeling like, Ruthless is going to be for you. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. My first example is going to be on a Cyclone champion that I was playing moving forward with my self-imposed challenge this league, which is to get one of each character class to kill Act 10 Katava in hardcore solo self-found Ruthless. And I learned that, first off, life gain on hit, just going life gain on hit on claws, is a ridiculously strong defensive layer throughout the 10X story campaign. It's ridiculously strong. You dual wield claws, you can go through some fights, even with way below optimal gear for defensive layers, and you'll be fine, because you're just regenning so much life gain. It doesn't matter that you're taking a bunch of damage. As long as you don't get one hit, you're basically regenning your life back up. But I also learned, and this is really the thing that I learned that using something as simple as, and I've played Path of Exile for years, something as simple as Infernal Cry, using Infernal Cry can help your clear immensely. It covers your enemies essentially with a mini, covered in ashes effect, and it also makes them explode when they're killed. So when you're going through a pack, if you're not doing it that much damage, well, once you kill one thing in the pack, at least that thing's life pool then becomes a source of damage for you. Of course, you can go onto the passive tree, and if you're down here on the left-hand side of the passive tree, you can go to Call to Arms using War Cries as instance. War Cries share their cooldown. So what I was able to do was I was able to take a struggling champion that was cycloning and staying alive, but wasn't really doing any damage and was having, frankly, trouble clearing white and yellow or white and blue packs, let alone taking down yellows. I was able to incorporate Infernal Cry into my build, not reworking an Ascendancy, not swapping out for a bunch of different uniques, just looking at the passive tree and going, what could I do with the active skills that I have? And using Call to Arms to be able to spam a war cry. Spam, I use spam with air quotes here, right? Because it's still got a relatively long cooldown. But to be able to use Infernal Cry in combination with Cyclone really improved the smoothness of my gameplay. And it even helped me when I was taking on bosses. Because a lot of bosses throughout the 10X story campaign of Path of Exile have got various monsters inside the room with them while you're taking them down. And so using Infernal Cry actually helped me take down a couple of different bosses. I learned something from that experience. Let me give you one other example. The other example is Chaos Resistance. Up here, towards the Templar and Witch Tree, right in the middle here, there's this big wheel called Asylum. I'm sure a whole bunch of you out there play with Asylum and use Asylum a whole bunch. However, for me, generally haven't used it. When I'm playing softcore and I'm pushing through things, I generally have the damage to not worry about chaos resistance, right? You take things down relatively quickly when you've got all of the auras at your disposal that you could ever imagine. You've got all the uniques that you could ever want on your build. You've got twink gear if you're leveling a new character. You don't need to worry about Dodre. You don't need to worry about the Mistress of Puppets. You don't need to worry about random snakes along the causeway that might shoot you and do some chaos damage. However, since I'm playing in the most masochistic way that I could think to play, which was hardcore solo self-found Ruthless, I've found out that I actually really need to use chaos resistance. And while it is true, and Dr. Ruth could back me up here with, Dr. Ruth's advice, it is true that chaos damage is generally the least common source of damage when compared with physical and elemental damage in Path of Exile. Least common does not mean you're never going to see it. It means there's a lot of physical damage in the game. There's a lot of elemental damage in the game. But I have noticed on characters that have gone up and taken Asylum, a huge increase to my survivability. And I've also learned, as I've been taking a look at different builds and different build guide creators and different discussions around survivability, that one of the big differences in the effective hit pool of characters who are able to stay alive longer and keep their XP or keep their entire character if they're playing hardcore is in levels of chaos resistance. And so these are just a couple of things that I've learned, right? I'm going to highlight these again, these three. I have learned things. I, as a longtime Path of Exile player, have learned things by playing Ruthless. I have experienced a new level of creativity and appreciation for the passive tree while playing Ruthless. And I've had a ton of fun playing Ruthless through the 10X story campaign. Do you see how many characters I'm playing? Only 2 of these characters have even reached the ability to take on maps. Only 2. And yet I am continuing to play Path of Exile Ruthless because the 10X story campaign itself, you know that thing that players complain about every single league? Oh my goodness, I'm so sick of leveling. Oh, I'm sick of leveling through the 10X story campaign. Oh, I wish GGG would do something about the 10X story campaign. Oh, I can't stand killing the bandits for the millionth time. That thing that all of us seemingly complain about on a league-by-league basis, that has become fun and enjoyable for me. Like, the Weaver fight in Act 2 on my first couple characters, that was a genuine challenge to take down the Weaver and to go, okay, what am I going to do here? How am I going to juggle damage? How am I going to stay alive? What do I need to do? Did you know the magic pack in the Weaver den can, seriously be detrimental to your character's health? Depending on what that magic pack is, it can be very deadly. Anyway, so these are just 3 reasons why you should play Ruthless. Because it could be fun. If it is more fun, if you think there's a way for you to play Path of Exile that's more fun than what you're playing in the normal mode, Ruthless might be it. The scarcity of it might increase your creativity. If you're sick of constantly following someone else's build guide and you want to go, I want to learn the passive tree and I want to toy with it. I want to have fun messing with it. And I want to see what's actually strong for myself. That is going to be, Ruthless is going to be that outlet for you. And then thirdly, learning. You're going to learn a lot. I've failed a lot throughout my time playing Ruthless, but every time you fail, it's a step in the right direction towards success, if that makes sense. So that should give you 3 options or 3 pieces of advice from Dr. Ruth's Why Play Ruthless prescription. If none of those reasons are convincing to you, then you shouldn't play it. You shouldn't try it. You should just enjoy Path of Exile. You should just continue enjoying Path of Exile in whatever way you are currently enjoying Path of Exile. To me, on release, Ruthless is a very fun game mechanic. It is a very fun alternative way to play. I will probably bounce back and forth between Ruthless and regular Path of Exile, because I certainly would like to push into higher levels and push into maps in the future. But right now, this league, I'm genuinely having a great time playing through the 10X story campaign, playing on different archetypes, learning different combinations for leveling, learning different combinations of different active skill gems that can layer your damage, that can layer your defenses, that can deal with different rare stats and rare mobs and monsters that you're going to encounter, whether they're random monsters or whether they're bosses and they're set at every single act. It has been a tremendous joy for me to play, and I've learned a ton. Anyway, so that's where I'm going to leave that as an answer to the question from Jeff. Jeff, thanks so much for asking the great question. And of course, if in the course of today's discussion, you've got comments or you've got thoughts about anything that I've said here today, maybe you've got your own reasons for why you're playing Ruthless if you're a member of the Ruthless playing community, or maybe you're playing regular PoE and you've got a comeback to any of this and you say, well, this is the reason why I'm playing regular instead of Ruthless. Feel free to drop those as comments down below. Thanks once again for joining us today, and I hope the ongoing 320 Forbidden Sanctum League, if you're playing regular mode, is the league a Mirror of Calandra drops for you. And if you're playing Ruthless, well, I just hope you drop an aura or a support gem that you can actually use. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.